When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to some blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Yo, this is Vince Russo, and you are listening to Crazy Train Radio. Stay where you are. It's about to hit the fan.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest can be considered sometimes one of the most controversial men in professional wrestling, as he was a part of some great success in the Attitude Era, but he's done other things besides that. And we're going to be talking about his new book out, Total Nonstop Agony, which talks about his side of the upstart TNA at the time and the peaks and valleys. But let's go ahead and say hello to Mr. Vince Russo.
Hello. Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Vince, good morning. How are you?
All right, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And I'm just noticing you got, what's that, a Batman on your shoulder there, or a tattoo?
Yeah.
Nice. So, obvious question with the book. For people who have seen it and read it and all that fun stuff, what's the response been?
Well, so I mean, so far it's been great. But again, I hear from my audience, from Russo's brand. Obviously, if people follow me and follow my career, they're gonna buy my book. So those people know me fairly well. So the response I've gotten online from people that have read the book, have been great. I'm not the kind of guy that I'm not going to go online and read reviews and see what people, have to say. But, when it's people that, as I said, are directly, aligned with me and my brand and my way of thinking, it's been great. It's really been a positive feedback.
Well, before we do more deep dive on the book and everything else, you brought up Russo Brand. So, what is Russo Brand for those who aren't familiar, and what do you do over there with the
Yeah,
podcast and
it's
such?
it's russosbrand.com, and I've been podcasting for 11 years. And it's not just one podcast a week. I mean, we do several podcasts daily. A lot of people from the business come on, and as I said, this is something I've been doing for 11 years. And if people want to check that out, it's basically patreon.com/Russo TWC.
Right on. We will put links for that stuff out as well with the episode. But I found it interesting. It's with this book coming out, and it just so happened to coincide with the 3 episodes of Dark Side of the Ring. Was that something in the back of your head, or did it just work out that way?
God, not at all. I mean, not at all. That was 1000% coincidental. I was working on my book, and ECW Press, had a schedule. Then they interviewed me for Dark Side of the Ring. I had no idea, basically when they were going to air that episode. I mean, I had a release date for the book. I knew when the book was going to be released, but that was 1000% coincidental. And I mean, and it worked out great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I did watch the 3 episodes of Dark Side because it's very interesting with the way the ebbs and flows of TNA and such, which is also in the book. But the one thing that stood out with the Dark Side, at least, and I'm sure you've heard this, was that Dixie wasn't interviewed for it. Because obviously you were there, Jeff and his wife Karen were there, and different people were involved, but you would think Dixie would want her side of the story out there. Any insight to that, or?
Well, I listen. I wish Dixie would have been a part of it because obviously Dixie made some choices for a reason. She has her reasons. I wish she would have been a part of this. But, I got to tell you, man, I also understand her not wanting to be a part of this because, this is stuff like, bro, I left TNA 14 years ago. So as soon as something like this is done, it starts all over again, and you got to live through it all over again, and you got to answer the questions all over again. And knowing Dixie, man, she probably didn't want to do that, and she probably wanted to leave it in her rearview mirror. And I don't blame her for that. But I really wish she would have been a part of it because she definitely does have a side of her story.
And to give Dixie and the Carter family credit, if we're going to talk about the history of things, if it wasn't for them after the second episode of the pay-per-view stepping in because the financial backer had to drop out for obvious reasons, we wouldn't have TNA really to discuss besides just a couple shows.
1000%. 1000%. There's no Dixie Carter. There's no Bob and Janice Carter. There's no TNA. It's that simple. I mean, that is a fact. There would be no TNA today. TNA would have been done after show 2. That is a fact.
Yeah, so, anyway, yeah, that's very, you got to give her credit for that and the family
Right.
for
Right.
as long as they were involved.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
what was it about? We know you had the first 2 books talking about both your WWE run and WCW. But what was it finally for you to be able to say, I'm going to do my book on my involvement with TNA? What was that thought process like?
Yeah, it was always going to be a trilogy, bro. I always wanted to write three books, one representing each different company. But I wrote the second book, I think, God, bro, I think it was 2010. And as time went on, I really didn't know if I had a third book in me because it's just a lot of work to write a book, especially when you're podcasting a couple of times a day and you got a lot of stuff going on. But I wanted to kind of stick to what the original plan was. So, after 16 years, I just sat down and I said, you know what? This was supposed to be a trilogy. I'm going to write this book and get it done. And I did.
So was ECW Press involved with the first two,
Oh
or
yeah,
was this
all my
okay?
books were through ECW Press. Yes,
Yeah, because I've recommended a couple authors to ECW Press because how outstanding they are to deal with.
absolutely. Michael Holmes is my publisher, and man, I've had such a long-lasting relationship with him, probably since God, bro, 2002, maybe 2000, right around there. I've known him for a very long time.
Yeah, they're great people over there, and I'm not saying that because we've done a lot of stuff with them, but they are aces for me at least.
Yep.
But when you were starting to get into writing a book, did you find that stories came back easy or also emotionally therapeutic at times?
Oh, 1000%, man. I had no idea what was inside and what I was bottling up inside and what I was holding up inside. I had no idea until I started writing that book. And I mean, the minute I sat down and started writing it, man, it just all poured out. So it was definitely therapeutic. Definitely.
Well, within the book and just in general, was there a lot of daily drama within the company that people might not be aware of? Because obviously there's certain stories everybody's heard, whether it's through the dirt sheets or podcasts or whatever the case is. But was there anything different that came out when you started putting this together?
Well, there was always drama with Jeff and Dixie. Always drama with Dex and a lot of that had to do with what you said. This was originally Jeff's company, and then it was no longer Jeff's company because the money guy pulled out. So from that point on, there was always conflict. There was, when Hogan and Bischoff came in, there was a lot of conflict. Bro, I got to tell you, I'm so sick of what people have built up with this Cornette Russo. People have built this shit up. While I was working there with Jim, there was never any face-to-face conflict, ever. I never said anything about Jim. I never confronted Jim. There was never any face-to-face. It was always the things Jim said about me when I wasn't there. So people have built up this Russo Cornette conflict. There was never a conflict when we worked each other. If Jim Cornette hated me to my core, which he did, he never acted on it. He never said anything to me. I never said anything to him. And for the most part, whether we liked each other or not, we worked together. His bashing of Vince Russo came every time when he wasn't working with me. Never said anything to me at WWE, never said anything to me at TNA. It's when I left those companies or he left those companies that he would go on his tirades. But there was never drama there. The drama was always Dixie Jeff. That was always the drama. And like I said, later on with Bischoff and Hogan.
Yeah, because with as far as the Cornette and Russo stuff, what I mean, I didn't put any of that in my notes because it feels like low hanging fruit, and
It's bullshit. Like it's
yeah,
absolutely. I pay no mind to this guy. I don't listen to his podcast. I don't know what he says. I don't care what he says. But this is something that the fans and Dark Side of the Ring and people in the business have built up, I don't think one single second about this guy. So, a lot of people like to think, oh, that was drama, drama, drama. No, there was no drama. There was never no confrontation. There was never no yelling and screaming. There was never no arguing. None of that ever existed.
Exactly. And what I was going to say to that, based on what you said there, was you're a Northeast guy like myself.
Right.
If there's an issue, we're going to tell you 10 minutes ago, not wait
Absolutely.
and say behind your back.
Absolutely. And that's what's going to bring us heat, especially in the wrestling business, because people can't deal with the truth. So when you're truthful in the wrestling business, and when you call people out, that's when they start talking shit about you, because people in the wrestling business cannot handle the truth.
Yeah, especially if we try to speak our truth. Like I said, if there's an issue, we're going to address it now, not wait 6 months from now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
But you mentioned obviously the Jeff and Dixie drama there that's focused on Dark Side and stuff. But I'm curious to know, because I bypassed and met Dixie one time, like during that time period. It was just in passing I was introduced to her, because I've been doing this 14 years as well. But would you say Dixie cared more about her image than the company at times?
I wouldn't say that, bro, because she had to answer to her mother and father. So she wanted the company to do well. She had something to prove to her dad. So there's no question about that. There's no question that she didn't want the company to do well. Again, man, there was a side of Dixie where she did have a little bit of an ego. She did love being on camera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that overshadowed her wanting her company to be successful. I really don't. I really believe that was her number one priority.
Absolutely. But do you think there was times that there might have been some insecurity because of not having a clue about the inner workings of the business, whether it be the politicking or trying to make final decisions?
Yeah, but Jeff also added to that. Jeff added to that 1,000%, because once Dixie's family ponied up the money, anytime Dixie would try to give an opinion or say anything wrestling related, Jeff would just make her feel like an idiot. And Jeff basically would tell Dixie to stay in her lane. You don't know anything about wrestling. You don't know what you're talking about. And that made Dixie very insecure. And that made Dixie not want to make decisions. That shook her confidence. She had no confidence in making those decisions. And this is something that happened very, very, very early on. And I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I still consider Jeff a friend, but Jeff bullied her to some extent. And he really stripped her of, any security she had about herself. And that's why there is a pattern throughout TNA of Dixie always bringing in the next guy to make the decisions for her. And like I said, that happened very, very, very early on, when Jeff basically made it clear, I'm the wrestling guy, you're the money mark, don't get involved in any wrestling decisions.
And I wouldn't say money mark with this question, and I would think about it in the same terms of what's going on now with WWE, TKO ownership, and all that fun stuff. Wouldn't it make sense to smarten up our people who are helping finance us to try to make the product better?
1,000%. Absolutely 1,000%. It's got to be a working relationship, bro. It's got to be a working relationship. But wrestling people are just so guarded. And they're always in protecting their spots mode. It's all about them, and it's all about job security, man. That's really what it's all about. Wrestling is full of paranoid wrestlers. They're independent contractors, and they're pitted against each other. That's the way it's always been. And yes, they should be working hand in hand with management, not working against them.
Is there anything you think you pitched over the years with them that maybe wasn't used?
Bro, honestly, what I could think of, the answer is no. Bro, the thing that really pisses me off, and I saw another interview yesterday, and it really pisses me off. It's like, again, people create myths about me that are absolutely not true. Like, Vince only talks about his successes and never his failures. Bro, do you know how many times I've spoken about the dog kennel from hell? Do you know how many times I've talked about the Stairway to Heaven match with Abyss and Sting? Do you know how many times I've talked about what was Beaver Cleaver my idea? Yes, it absolutely was my idea. But then when there's things that weren't my idea, I say they weren't my idea. Now my question is, and this is what just people are just so freaking ignorant. Why would I claim some stinkers as my idea and other stinkers as not my idea? Why would I do that? That makes absolutely no sense. And bro, the bottom line is, I say this all the time. I would rather try something new and have it fail terribly than repeat the same old shit over and over and over and over and over again. And bro, for the record, again, for the 97th time, while I talk about my failures, the electrified cage was not my idea. I was in an arena where the entire arena was chanting "Fire Russo." This was not my idea. This was an idea that Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantel came up with when I had left the company. I wasn't there when they came up with this idea. When I came back, my first meeting back, they were talking about this electrified cage. They had already booked it, my first meeting back to TNA. And bro, here's the bottom line. Never in a million years would I ever have suggested a match like that, because I knew TNA wasn't going to pull that off. They didn't have the resources. This isn't the WWE where I can write an Inferno match and know it's going to look great. This is a TNA doing an electrified cage, on a shoestring budget. No, bro, that's nothing that I ever would have pitched. But it grates at me when I'm like, yeah, bro, dog kennel from hell sucked. My idea. Stairway to Heaven sucked. My idea. Beaver Cleaver sucked. My idea. But when I say electrified cage was not my idea, that's the part about people in the wrestling business, bro, that they're just so full of shit. And that's why, like, I didn't watch Dark Side of the Ring, because half of the people on there are full of shit. And bro, here's what happens. You got a lot of people, bro, getting up there in age, and bro, they've forgotten. They have flat out forgotten. They don't remember, but they'll go along with the narrative. They'll go, if I say Vince Russo came up with the electrified cage, then I'm going to agree with that, whether I remember, forget it or not. And that's the part of the business that it's so full of liars and con men and bullshitters. And you said it early on, man. Being from the Northeast, it's such bullshit, man. The freaking lies, the shit that are made that's made up. It's just absolute bullshit. And honestly, it's stuff like that just drove me out of the wrestling business, man. I just could not deal with people like the Eric Bischoffs anymore and the Jim Cornettes and all these people that are just so full of shit. And that's why at the end of the day, I decided to leave. No matter what the narrative is, bro, I never got fired from any wrestling job. Any wrestling job. I left WWE when Vince told me to hire a nanny. 3 months in at WCW, they said to me, we're going in a different direction. We want you to be part of a committee. I'm like, I'm not interested in being part of a committee, so I'm going to go home and you're going to continue to pay me until you call me back because this thing is going to go in the shitter. And that's exactly what happened. I never got fired from TNA. I left TNA because here came Eric, here came Hulk, here came Bruce Pritchard, and it turned into the same old bullshit wrestling business. And that's why I left. Never one time since 1991 was I ever fired from one single wrestling job.
And it's funny you brought up different gimmick matches that were both good and bad. And I just remember the one that clicked in my head about the Inferno match was they would book stuff. And I've heard guys like Taker and Kane and all go, okay, that's great. How are we doing that? Like,
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
I would do the same thing. Like I would do the same thing. I would write stuff on the paper, send it off to Kevin Dunn. And I was like, I don't know how they're going to do this, but I know they're going to do this. That's not the way it was at TNA. At TNA, you knew they had no money. You knew they had no budget. You knew they had no, Richie Curtises. They didn't have the qualified people. That's why I would have never booked a match like that, because I would have known they're not capable of this looking good.
absolutely. How much do you think guys because there's a lot of bullshit that is spewed online with the business and such, but how do you think guys like Dave Meltzer and all still have any kind of credibility with what they do? Because, they just changed their mind or whatever they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? They have the different things
bro,
like that.
Because that's all the internet wrestling community, bro. That's all the smallest minority with the loudest voice. These are the people that have killed the wrestling business, bro. Absolutely killed the wrestling business. And the problem is they've always been there. They were there when I was writing for the WWE. But the difference is, bro, at some point, the WWE started catering to them. That's what happened. They started catering to the hardcore wrestling marks, and they literally forgot all about the millions and millions and millions of casual fans. And now it's biting them in the ass. And that was a decision that they made.
And I will go with that sentiment in terms of, and I'll use a term Al Snow uses often. I think I would want to try to cater my business to the Mr. and Mrs. Walmart, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's why the Attitude Era was so successful. That's what we did. That's exactly what we did.
Do you think the business can go back to that? Because obviously the horse has left the barn, per se, in different aspects of the business. But do you think whether TNA, AEW, or WWE can go back to having booms like that?
Yeah, bro. If they got rid of the old guard, if they don't get rid of the old guard, it's never going to change. It's always going to be the same old, same old. When you see the same people there that have been there for 20, 30 years, regardless of if the numbers are good or not, if those people remain there, it's always going to be the same, and it's never going to change. The Attitude Era was the Attitude Era because Vince brought me in. And then Vince backed me up. So I was able to put a new spin, on the wrestling business. Now, bro, it's like no matter how far the numbers fall, nobody ever gets fired. It blows my mind. It's like, if you're a baseball team and you lose 100 games every year and you never fire the manager. That's how professional wrestling is, and that freaking blows my mind, and nothing's going to change unless that old guard is replaced.
So, would you have any interest if any of the companies called you to throw some ideas or consult any of that?
I mean, bro, I'm definitely open to all that stuff. But like I said, man, unless there is an opportunity to really make a difference, and you're not spending 23 hours a day fighting through the political bullshit, it's not worth anybody's time. It would have to be a situation where, there was somebody like a Vince McMahon that, backed me and allowed me to try the things that I think the business needs to do. I don't know if that's a possibility, in 2026, because the wrestling business is all about keeping good people out of it. That's what it's all about. If they're intimidated by you and your talent, they're going to do everything in their power to keep you away from the company. So that's just the way it is, man.
Well, obviously, the book is Total Nonstop Agony. What do you think with TNA? I guess it's been the past year or so they've been on with AMC. How much do you think the network is involved with the programming? Because obviously, when you reference AEW, we know Warner Brothers Discovery has a stake in the company as well. How much stake or say should the TV side have on the product?
Bro, I used to consult for the USA Network. Yeah, I used to watch Raw and SmackDown and send them notes every week. The network needs a wrestling person working for them that's not affiliated with any wrestling company to smarten them up. I guarantee you, A&E, bro, does not get involved because they don't know wrestling and they don't understand wrestling. But if I were them, I'm definitely hiring a consultant who's explaining to me why certain things worked and why certain things didn't work and what they might want to try to do. That's why, bro, like I never wanted to go back and work for the WWE. I wanted to consult for USA because I knew USA was being worked and they needed a wrestling guy in there explaining to them, guys, this is why this is not working. This is what they should try to do.
I'm curious to know, and you don't have to go super deep with this, but the obviously we talk about the internet community sometimes bashing things just to bash shit. Did that ever concern you? Because you're a husband, you're a father, you're this stuff. Were you ever concerned about your family seeing things written on the internet
Oh
bashing
God,
you?
no, bro. I kept my family so far away from the wrestling business, bro. Are you kidding me, man? They didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. They had no idea what was going on. I wouldn't let them anywhere near this, man. Going online and reading stuff about me and stuff like that. Thank God that never happened because I kept them so far away. I never talked about what I was doing at work. I never talked about the politics. I never talked about any of that shit. I would have never involved my family in that.
Do you see yourself? You mentioned earlier you wanted this to be a trilogy with the different companies you worked for. Can you see yourself diving in and doing another book again, or is I'm done on the book?
I say no, but I didn't think there'd be a third book, man. But now I'm working for JCW, man, and there's so many stories there right now, and working hand in hand with Violent J, which has been an amazing experience. I mean, my God, bro, I didn't know that wasn't a thing when I wrote my third book. They had just contacted me and I just started talking to them and my book came out. But now, my God, I'm going on a year working with them shortly. And there's a lot of great stories there, man. There really are.
Well, what do you have going on over at JCW? Like the one headline I've been seeing was about the Jasmine St. Clair story and
Right.
such. But what's going on over there at JCW, and why should people watch it if they
bro,
choose
because it's if you want the Attitude Era 2026, it's JCW, bro. It's characters and storyline the way it used to be. It's not meaningless, repeated wrestling matches over and over and over again. And like I said, man, if you're a fan of the Attitude Era, you will love this show. We got a new episode every Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern on YouTube. It's called JCW Lunacy. There's a new show every single week. We've quadrupled our numbers in the last 10 months, and it's the wrestling that the casual wrestling audience enjoyed.
And as we put a bow on things here, Vincent, thank you for jumping on this morning. Where is the best spot to see? Is it RussoBrands.com? Give another plug if you can.
Yeah, guys, russosbrand.com. As a matter of fact, with the book right now, Total Nonstop Agony, if you go to russosbrand.com, you can get a personally autographed copy of the book. And my podcasting, as I said again, it's patreon.com/Russo TWC. We have many different tiers. We've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. Al Snow, EC3, people come in and out. Check that out, bro. I think it'll be worth your while.
Absolutely. And I know I mentioned his name there, or Al, just a mensch. Love the guy to death. But check out the book, folks. Check out the brand, the podcasting, the Patreon, everything. Vince, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You are going to need a bigger closet when you meet our new friends.
What?
Our friends over at Silk Screams out of Buffalo, New York is a diverse owned company that has a variety of shirts to fit your needs.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Let's also not forget that Silk Screams also runs the semi-annual Buffalo Horror Garage Sale, which has tons of merchandise, celebrity guests, and tons of fun. Check our friends out over on their Big Cartel site to order stuff, or on social media for updates on merch, or on the Buffalo Horror Garage Sale. Visit our friends, like I said, at Silk Screams today.
Yeah, baby.
What does everybody want? Hi, I'm former WWE superstar Al Snow, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.